first thread, saying that tear gas had definitely been used.
Yeah, we weren't using tear gas. We were just smacking people in the face, decking what sounds like a small girl, and bashing people with cameras.
Law enforcement officials separately told the Post that
we weren't using tear gas. Oh, and we almost exploded a guy's leg by throwing what wasn't tear gas. What wasn't a tear gas bomb, just a regular smoke bomb at the guy's leg. Because if something explodes by your leg, as long as it's smoke, it won't affect your leg.
Even though those officials said that this plan had already been set, a White House spokesperson said later this afternoon that the crowd was dispersed to enforce the 7 p.m. curfew. And according to the Washington Post, the White House and Secret Service declined to say who gave the order to clear the park. Defense officials said the National Guard did not participate in the decision, and the D.C. Chief of Police said that his force was not involved in moving back the protesters. And
of course, I didn't do it. I didn't send those people. Not me. He did it. Everybody passing the buck.
Controversial and widely criticized on its own. It's known as the Church of the Presidents and has hosted every U.S. president since its founding in 1816. And notably here, it's reported that Trump's visit to that church was completely unannounced. Church authorities publicly expressing their outrage that he did not inform them that he was coming. Right, and that's why on TV we had the Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy, the Episcopal Bishop of Washington, who has oversight responsibilities for that church, saying,
"The president did not pray when he came to St. John's, nor, as you just articulated, did he acknowledge the agony of our country right now, and in particular that of the people of color in our nation, who wonder if anyone in public power will ever acknowledge their sacred worth, and who are rightfully demanding an end to 400 years of systemic racism and white supremacy in our country. And I just want the world to know that we in the Diocese of Washington, following Jesus and his way of love, we distance ourselves from the incendiary language of this president."
With Buddy also doubling down,
in other words, this dude's a racist fuck, and we're not with him just because he can stand outside a church with a Bible.
And he's done everything to divide us. Right, and that was something that we saw echoed by a number of other religious leaders and clergy members. Right, and so that's kind of the bigger, broader story. But it's also important that we actually take a look at what Trump said during his speech. Right,
so Trump's pissed off the military, the church, and 80% of the population.
Our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others. A number of state and local governments have failed to take necessary action to safeguard their residents. These are not acts of peaceful protest. These are acts of domestic terror.
Trump also saying that he's mobilizing both civilian and military resources.
Also a bunch of good old boys stepping on people's necks. That will cure racism right now.
Very notably saying,
"If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them."
With Trump also going on to say that he had already dispatched thousands of heavily armed military personnel and law enforcement officers in D.C. and continuing,
"I want the organizers of this terror to be on notice that you will face severe criminal penalties and lengthy sentences in jail. This includes Antifa and others who are leading instigators of this violence."
Right, so there's a few things to unpack here, but I want to close by focusing on Trump threatening to deploy the military within the United States, because that is a huge deal. Right, one of the big questions one of the big questions that is constantly asked when Trump makes a decision is, can he legally do that? And because we're talking about it now, you can probably guess that the answer is not a simple answer. Trump could invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, which gives the president the power to deploy the military for domestic law enforcement under certain circumstances. This, however, is very rare. The last time it was used was in 1992 during the Rodney King riots in California, but notably that was at the request of the state's governor. Trump also does have significant power over what he can do within the borders of the District of Columbia, but the ways in which the president can use troops domestically are more limited without the approval of the state. That's because the president can only deploy the military to enforce state law if a state makes
I still say, if he does,
the Insurrection Act does say that the president can
these protests are happening everywhere. So he's going to deploy people that live in that town that have family to go step down on their family's rights.
disperse, which basically gives the protesters a certain.
Don't get me wrong. I hate protesters are wrong, but they're pissed.
Of the president going against local leaders such as Dwight Eisenhower and
John
F.
Kennedy
during the Civil Rights era.
Dude's pretty much stepping on free speech and using the military to do it, or at least threatening to do that.
But what is clear is that he's setting himself up for